Maigavan and Melanine, and well met. I am Arachír Galudirithon, head of Divide and Conquer, and welcome to another faction overview video, this time for the Grey Havens of Lindon, the realm of Mythlond, the realm of the High Elves in the west, and purple coloured on the map, as you can see in the bottom corner. The first thing that I shall do before we talk about anything else is, as promised,
my brothers,
is to show you how to trade an ancillary between two generals, in case you don't know how to do it. Yeah, we should be able to trade one of them. So let's get a general across. Torian. Alright, so to trade an ancillary, you need the generals to be in the same army. As far as I'm aware, that's the only way I've ever known to do it, so that's the way I would suggest you do it. But I'm pretty sure they have to be in the same army because they are physically giving an item to each other. So you have them in the same army, as we have here Haven Master Círdan the Respected and Taurian. And all you could quite simply do is take the ancillary that you want. We'll go with Airgloss, Spear of Gil-galad. You click and drag, so just hold down the left mouse button, drag it, and you just drop it on his portrait. Now Airgloss is not transferable, which is why that did not trade. Let's see if Erastor is transferable. No, that's not transferable either, and he has no ancillaries. How about, well, Naya's not going to be transferable, is it? Let's be honest. Oh well, I can't show you with any other way, but that is all you have to do. The reason if an ancillary doesn't trade across, like it is not doing here, that is because the ancillary is not transferable, and that quite simply means that that general is the only general who can ever have that ancillary. The second reason that it might not be transferring across is if they already have 8 ancillaries, they can gain no more. 8 is the hard-coded maximum limit, so in people's questions about why they might not be getting the ring when they have the settlement that has the ring in it, you have to have a general in there that can actually take an ancillary. And so if there isn't any room, you need to send over some other generals and clear some of your men's ancillaries. I've said ancillary about 19 million times in that first bit. But anyway, that's how you trade an ancillary. So that's how you trade the next heir ancillary that you may have seen in the 0.52 changelog video and in installation instructions. Right, let's dive straight in. Game start, Mythlond. This is the situation at the beginning. As you can see, you've got a few Teleri, you've got Círdan, Taurian was there, and he's got Teleri as well. In Harlond, you've got Teleri again, and Galdor, your faction heir. And you also own Forlond, with Gildor the Brave and Teleri archers as well. And those are your 4 provinces. And that is all you start with, I'm afraid. So the 4 provinces, which is quite good, but nothing special when you consider Gondor has something like 16. And now in terms of early expansion and where you can go, your options are south, and south only. Well, a bit to the east, but not much. To the north, there's a town here, but it's immediately taken by the forces of Ered-Luin. And there's nothing north, because Ered-Luin will take these villages straight away, so you can't go there. But if you do head slightly to the east, you can get to the east. You can get to Undertowers before Bree do. And so you might be able to claim Undertowers, which is the village just there. And there's a small village just up here, which I can't quite remember the name of, that one there. Kalanen, yes, which means a city of brilliant water, something like that, like silver water, brilliant water. I can't quite recall, but I did name that town, but some of the words go out of your mind. But your other options and more prominent options are to head south, where you can take the unclaimed mountain town just here and get the rich resources of the lower half of the Blue Mountains. And then indeed you can take a couple of villages, one just here, and potentially get the fort just there. And those are your rebel regions, so mostly to the south and a few to the east. Now your neighbours and who you start allied to, we'll start with the allies. You start allied to Bree and Imladris, so do note that whilst you have very favourable relations with the dwarves of the Blue Mountains, you're not allied with them. Your allies are Bree, whose capital is just there, the Hill of Bree, and of course Imladris miles away in the Vale of Imladris. But your actual neighbours are of course the Blue Mountains to the north, Bree to your east, and the unknown factor that is Ened Wyth to the south. Here on the peninsula of Erin Vaughan, the Blackwood, and they have a town just there, I think called Dolvaughan. And they will take these settlements here on the peninsula of Siduri quite quickly. So the Gwathlo will be in Ened Wythian hands for a while, and they will likely be your chief enemy. But do note that you don't have any enemies. Well, you obviously are at war with the remnants of Angmar, but it'll be a cold day in hell before they make it all the way to your homeland. The dwarves in northern Dunedain and Bree have got them covered, so the biggest threat that comes to you I'll talk about in the script section, but only briefly. But no, you don't really have any enemies. Enedwaith will never really attack you, Enedwaith, because Gondor is a much prettier prize for them, and you're often far stronger than they are, so they will not risk going to war with you. So as Lindon, you can kind of do whatever you like, play it however you like. You can turn to evil if you want and attack all of the good nations in the north. Make a fully elven realm between the sea and the mountains, but it is entirely up to yourself. Now, in terms of economy, you're an elven faction, so you get reasonably good economical buildings because they have quite a few more ports than most factions. But otherwise nothing special, just standard Med 2 buildings, all twisted with a nice elven UI. You can't build castles, do bear that in mind. You're an elven faction. Your restriction is that you cannot build any castles. So a castle is virtually redundant to you unless it is a wooden castle or a castle. A motte and bailey is really just a hindrance to you, and it's ideal to try and take those when other factions have built them up for you. And leading on with construction, we can also talk about what guilds you get. And you get the History Guild, the famed History Guild. It used to be a requirement to get the Smiths of Eregion, but it is no longer. It is now just an experience bonus to troops. So you get the History Guild. You get the Construction Art Buildings, which isn't really a guild. They're just unique buildings that give you, as you can see, income bonus, population growth bonus, and building costs are reduced. They're predominantly the old AI building, but we've given it a bonus if you play it as a human, so call it a gift. And you get the Warriors Guild. Interesting to note that you get all 3 stages of the Warriors Guild, whereas a lot of factions don't. So you're one of the few factions who can get the headquarters, the greatest Warriors Guild in the land. But initially you get a Bladesmith Guild, melee weapon bonus, Master Bladesmith Guild, bonus and then experience, and then just increased on the experience. But interesting that you may see there you can get Celebrimborian Plate from the Noldorin Bladesmith. Now, Celebrimborian Plate is the highest possible smithing level that the elves can get, and it's only available in the Noldorin Bladesmith, or in Ostin Ethil itself, in the Gwythi. I can't remember what it's called. I don't know if it is called Gwyth. The Jewelers Guild there, the Jewelsmith Guild. And those are the 2 places that you can get the highest possible armor for yourselves. So the highest armor that you can really get is the from the blacksmith, which I can show you as well. So you get down to Noldorin armor, which gives you Noldorin plate. So all 5 levels there. But you are, along with the dwarves, the only faction that gets a 6th level. But as I say, it's only available in 1 hard location and 1 potential location. So that's your construction. Now, in terms of scripts, there are none. Well, I should say there are no positive scripts. I don't want to ruin the Umbar script, but you could probably guess what it is. But I would suggest that you don't leave Mithlond unguarded around turn 100. But I don't want to say anything else other than that, because I do like some level of secrecy. So the only script that really affects you is to make sure Mithlond has a good defense around turn 100. And that's about it. Now, in terms of the garrison, because you're an elven faction, you will get your garrison in your capital and your capital only. That will include the capitals of the other 3 nations of the elves. So if you're lucky enough to take Imladris, or even luckier to expand your nation across the Misty Mountains, you can get a garrison in their capitals as well. But this leads on to any tips or the talking about difficulty with Mithlond. Oh, sorry, I keep dropping my comb. Mithlond, Lindon, they are easily one of the easiest factions. I always say that the elves are the easiest factions, and particularly the High Elves. Well, Lindon have the easiest game. I definitely think they're a candidate for the easiest game in the game. The easiest campaign in the game. You start off with no threats. Enedwaith won't attack you because you're too strong. The Blue Mountains won't focus on you, they'll go for Angmar, and you can make an alliance with them pretty quickly. And as you can see, your homeland is miles away from anywhere. They really are a faction if you want to play, if you like being all-powerful, because then you can sit in your homeland, build up money, and then march out with a monumental force and just sweep everyone away. As you will see in the next half of this video, they have very strong units. So that concludes the first half. There's not much to talk about in relation to the campaign side of Lindon. But there's a little bit more to talk about with the units. Although I must admit, and I will say now, that because the Elder Rinway units, which are the elites, they are a unit for both Imladris and Lindon, and they are shared. There's no difference between them whatsoever. So to learn the most about your Elder Rinway units, do see the Imladris video, as I don't really want to repeat it. I'll show you their scroll and then you can have a look, but I won't really talk in depth about the Elder Rinway. But they are in the battle. First thing you can note, and if you're playing 0.52, I'm sure you'll be grateful, that they no longer use the Sindarin voices. They now use the old Battle for Middle-earth voices. And a quick glance of Lindon, you'll see again, you're not really a cavalry faction. 2 units of cavalry, and one of those, the Elder Rinways, are really late game. So, you're not really a cavalry faction. But let's line up your units where they are. So, initially you're going to have your Teleries. Teleri, or Telerin. There are 3. There's your Teleries. And then your next tier you get Lindar Marines. Are the long spears in the next one? I can't quite recall. Yes, they are indeed. And they sort of fill this gap because they're a bit available earlier. And then you get the Sindar units coming in there. And then these units at the end. Now I've done the Mithlon Nobles in this video, so I will cover them. But really the Mithlon Nobles are up there. They're Ubers. Absolute Ubers. So this is your roster. These are the Teleri, the basic unit, the equivalent of Imladris' Quenya, except you get a mounted version, which Imladris do not. Now you have quite nice shields for Lindon as well. They're good quality shields. Well done, Hummingbird. But we'll start with the swords. As is the nature of almost all elven units, there's not very many. They cost an arm and a leg, which is an English colloquialism meaning they cost an awful lot. But they are beasts. Their defense is 15. Their attack is 10, their charge is 6. They're already vastly outclassed most, the first 2 tiers of almost every non-elven faction. So, really, really strong. As you can imagine, all elves are adept at hiding in woods. And the elves get bonuses in forest and snow. There's no change in grassland, and they don't fight very well in deserts. So, really, you're never going to have a negative battleground, because how often does someone playing as Imladris or Lindon ever go to Umbar? But if you do go to Umbar, your troops will be slightly worse off, so do bear that in mind. So those are the swordmen. They can fill every single role. They'll be defensive, they'll be aggressive, they can do what you like. They have very good morale as well, which is normally a trait of elites, like lower tier elites, but their morale response is good. So they speak for themselves, these units, really. They are, as you might imagine, very strong. Right, the Teleri archers, slightly worse defense as you'd expect from archers, not as good melee, same as you'd expect from archers. Charge bonus is similar, and their missile is 7. That's already better than the famed ranger class units from the humans. So Castamir's rangers, Athelian rangers, Athala rangers, sorry, and of course Dunedain rangers. Your basic archer is already better than the rangers of the humans. Adept at hiding in woods again. You can use sharpened stakes, which some militia archers cannot. You have excellent stamina, which is again a trait of all elves. However, the archers do have slightly worse morale, so they're not going to be as powerhousey and beastie as your base units, your swordmen. Feel free to have a look at the other bits and pieces there, stats there. So those are the archers. And then the third complement are the riders. Ready your mounts! Teleri riders. Teleri riders are very good cavalry. An attack of 7, which is nice, but coupled with their 11 charge, makes them very strong. And their secondary attack is 10, making them the equivalent of mounted swordmen. They have a defense of 14, so slightly worse because they don't have as good a defense skill as you'd expect, because it's harder to defend on a horse than it is on foot. And otherwise, very, very similar stats again. Good morale response. But it is worth noting that only the base swordmen have the very good morale. So the swordmen are going to hold out the best, and they're going to survive the longest. Right, in the middle tier you have, well, not really the middle tier, it's kind of a halfway tier. These are the defensive midfielders. These are Lindon Long Spears and Lindar Marines. Oh, Mariners, they are Mariners. Oh, I thought they were Mariners. Both of these units and the Mithlons are the only ones which have AOR restrictions. The Lindon Long Spears are only available in the 4 Lindon provinces. We bring spears from Mithlond. So your capital, Harlindon, 4 Lindon, and I don't know what the city south of Mithlond, which is called the King's Haven. I think it's called Arlond or Arthurlond. I think it might be called Arthurlond, because that means Kingshaven. But anyway, those 4 regions are where you get the Lindon long spears, and they are the first, as you can see, anti-cavalry unit that you get. They are also good against armor, which is a very unique trait. Have basically put down to their weapon being used by ridiculously skillful warriors who can find the chinks in armor rather than being brutish axes that just cleave armor in half. So they're effective against armor. They have a 10 attack as well. Couple that with the fact that they're essentially pike spear units, and you've got a formidable spear unit, one of the best. Even though their defense is only 15, their attack, the fact that they're spear / pike, and coupled with their effective against armor, make them just demons, absolute demons. It does that a lot. They are adept at hiding in woods, as you can see there as well. And their morale again is very good, average, and good morale response. And you can have a look at the other bits and pieces there. So those are the Lindon long spears. Again, I should say all elven units are really expensive. They have a very expensive drop cost and a very expensive upkeep. Drop cost, that's an entirely different game. Drop cost just means their initial cost. So they have a very expensive initial cost and an expensive upkeep. And that is true of all elves. There's only 1 or 2 units I think that don't fill that pattern, and I think they're both Imladris or I think they're the ranger units from the Mirkwood Elves, I'm afraid, so your ones will all be expensive. Right, the other one in this tier are Lindar Mariners. These are a creation from Hummingbird, very recently only released in patch 0.52. And they just bulk out Lindon's roster a bit and give Lindon a bit of an aggressive unit, because Lindon are a very defensive unit, as we'll see when we defensive faction, as we will see when we get to the middle tier. So the Mariners give them a bit of aggression. There's some stats here that you won't see, but their defense is 17, which is good. Bear in mind there's no shield though, so they're quite susceptible to archers. Their attack though is 15, very high attack with a very high charge as well. They're very, very aggressive. Coupled that with a very good morale response, and then the stat that you don't see is that they're very fast. On the actual map itself, they run quite fast. Sorry, excuse me. So that it just adds to their aggressive nature. They can get to the enemy lines faster, or they can perform flanks faster. They can do everything faster because they move faster. Although it doesn't affect their attack speed, so do bear that in mind. It's only their running speed. But speaking of their attack speed, they also have a very fast attack speed to complement their high attack. So they are slayers in every sense of the word. And they are all available, I believe, before the barracks event. But do bear in mind that those ones do fill a sort of middle tier role, so they'll be more expensive. The restriction on the Mariners is, as you might think, they're only available on the coast. So you can only get them in coastal regions. Right, middle tier. This is where the Sindar come to bear, the 3 Sindar units. You get archers, spearmen with their large round silver shields, and guards who are the pikemen. And this is why they are very defensive, because they're mainstream middle tier units, the ones that theoretically you should be playing with the most, because most campaigns last quite a while after the barracks event. They have a spear unit and a pike unit, so they don't really have an aggressive unit in this tier. But we'll start with the archers, because these are your second archer unit. Your missile is now 8, your attack is 10, charge is 5, but the defense is quite similar to the Teleri archers, only 3 better. But that does come, as you can see, mostly from their armor. They have a worse defense skill, but a much higher armor. So do bear in mind that they're very susceptible to armor-piercing enemies, but otherwise they're quite defensive, quite good defensively. They've got pretty cool bows as well there. But back to the stats. So 17 defense, 10 attack, 8 missile. Again sharpened stakes. Again adept in woods. Excellent stamina. And now we're at the tier where everyone will have very good and good. And you can see there are other stats there. Bear in mind that when an elven accuracy is high, it is 2 tiers higher than a human that says high. Because the human is the base archery line, so the humans are the baseline, and every orc tier is 1 worse than a human tier, and every elven tier is 1 higher than a human tier. So, if the tiers were poor, good, and high, then a high human is the same as a good elven, if that makes sense. And a high orc is the same as a good human. So a high human is the same as a good elf, and a high orc is the same as a good human. So they're staggered in tiers. So very good accuracy is basically what that long-winded description is saying. Right, Sindar Spearmen. they are spearmen, as you might imagine. They can shield wall, which is very useful. Their defense is 24. That is monumental. A large chunk of it is defense skill though, so do watch out for arrow fire. But otherwise, same stats again. Very good morale response. They're effective against cavalry, as you'd expect, and excellent stamina as well. You can have a little look there. But as you can, the recruitment costs for custom battle have not. I should have said this in every video. I don't know why I've not. But the custom battle costs have never been adjusted. We've never bothered to put any work into the custom battle costs. So that cost is not what the cost will be in campaign. I should have said that many videos ago. I apologise indeed. But the costs that you will see on these scrolls are never the cost of the campaign. They're never balanced for custom battles. So a basic unit might cost more than an elite unit. Like the Lindar Mariners have 1188, and so do the tier above them. It's that sort of thing. They're not balanced for custom. So you'd need to go into the campaign to learn their real costs. Right, the Sindar Guards. Now these are pikemen. And a pikeman with a 14 attack is incredible. As you are probably all aware, pikemen are a little bugged in Total War full stop, really. Even in Rome Total War, you can use pikemen to decimate everyone. And Rome Total War 2, I mean. In Rome 1, of course, they were just monsters. But they've not really edited pikemen, and to this day they're still overpowered. And that's because they can kind of stun lock the enemy, and they keep the enemy at bay as well. And interestingly, what you may not realise is that pikemen can be used offensively really well because they push the enemy back, and the enemy can't really get to them. They can break a wall really easily. They can break a defensive line by just pushing through and splitting a force, and then you can essentially rush your men through the now safe location and flank enemies round. Many's the time I have died to forces of Harad where their Southron pikemen have broken my militia down, and then their more elite cavalry have just burst through the pike gap and hit my archers behind. So it's a very viable tactic to use pikemen offensively, and if you haven't been, then do use it because it's very, very useful. But anyway, back to their thing. They can form spear wall, as you'd expect with all pikes, which is just useful again to keep the enemy blocked. Their defense is 18, which is very good for pikes. Really, they're just very, very good pikemen. Really solid pikemen. But that is offset. They've got a slightly lower morale, but they've got a better morale response than anyone else so far. So they're going to deal with shocks to the system a lot better, but they have a lower overall morale. There's all your spearmen ready for some reason, even though there's no enemies yet. Alright, and those are your middle tier. The first, I'm pretty sure their barracks event, yes they are, because the elves have the 3, I think. So their barracks event in the first barracks that comes, and then you've got your elites up here. I'll show you what they all look like. Now, as I say, the Elder Inway have been covered in the Imladris video, so this one is just to let you see what they look like and show you their stats, but I won't really talk in detail about it, so there we are. Note, though, that they do have locked morale, so the Elder Inway will never flee, and this is true of, I believe, all 3, as we will find out now. Yes, indeed, again, although I've put that in the locked morale, but that should be in the morale. Oh, that's really annoying. I've added that to the wrong one. I have to go through and edit that. Let me write that down, everyone. Give me just 2 shakes. That's right. Modding on the fly. Welcome to the world of modding. Text locked. Alright, that'll be the first bit of work for the next patch, whatever that will be. Hopefully 0.6. But anyway. And then there's the Lancers. It's very strong stats again. As you might note, the cavalry or the Elder Inway for Lindon do look different. Oh look, they've got it in the right place. Bloomin' swordmen and archers. But what you will note is that the UI is a slightly greener colour than it is here, and that's because that's what they used to look like. But then the theme of Lindon changed to a sort of royal blue or a lightish sort of blue colour, and the capes of the Elder Inway were changed to match, so that you have one fluid uniform rank. Now your bodyguards are pikemen for Lindon, and they are one of the few remaining non-Hummingbird or Zarathos DAC units. So think of them as a rare treat. They've got very, very nice helmets, actually. I like the little wings they've got on their helmets. I mean, they are one of the passable units from DAC's past. Let's just go with past. We don't want to slur anyone. But these are your bodyguards. Stats very similar of Elder Inway, obviously, but with a massive decrease in unit size. Less than half of your Elder Inways in a unit of Phalas. But again, Adepts in Hiding Woods, they're pikes, so as you can imagine, they're good against cavalry. And they have excellent morale, but it is not locked. so do bear that in mind. But their morale response is also good. Do note that morale response only has 4 levels. But the 4th level isn't directly related to morale response. You may have seen that in other videos. It's called impetuous, and it means that that unit will charge without orders. So a good morale response is actually up there as essentially the best. And there's only 1 tier higher, but it comes with the downside that the units might charge without orders, so not all units have it. Right, and finally, the Mithlond Nobles. A candidate for the best unit in the game, alongside the Sons of the Fallen, Smiths of Eregion, Talon Knights, and that's about it really in terms of foot soldiers. So they're up. They really are up there. Everyone should know who they are because they're from 3rd Age Total War. We've not changed them because no one is allowed to edit them, and they can be trained in Mithlond only, your capital city. But as you can see, they are unbelievable. Stats, defense almost reaching 40, which is virtually unheard of. Their attack is 20. That's like troll level attack. They are the absolute pinnacle of elven warfare. Them, if you had a unit of these and a unit of Smiths of Eregion in your army, you are virtually unstoppable. As you might imagine, they have locked morale. They have excellent morale, and it's locked with a good morale response. And they bonus Forest Node. And again, interestingly, they get a bonus against wargs. So, as defenders of the free peoples of Middle-earth, they get a bonus against the only anti-mounted unit in Middle-earth. Anti-good. I'm not really making that clear. Wargs fight only for the forces of evil, so these get a bonus against wargs. I'm not entirely certain why they've got a bonus against wargs, but they get the officers from Imladris, so there's a nice little nod there for Imladris players, although for some reason there is a huge gap, and I don't know why. Oh, it's because I must have set them up funny. Anyway, there we are. Mithlond Nobles. As I say, they really are potentially the best unit in the game, and there's only a very few number of units that can even come close. When you consider that's your elite, and it has 26, which is really quite good, and then that unit has 38, you can see just the jump that you can go through as Lindon. So we'll line everyone up and we'll have a little battle. So, and as usual, that will then end the video. So I hope again this one has been very enjoyable. You get to watch a little bit of a battle between forces of Lindon and the clans of Enedwaith. In days gone by, Enedwaith and Lindon were at war with each other at the start of the game, and indeed it was a requirement of the Lindon campaign to beat Enedwaith, and vice versa. Or interested to know if vice versa is the anglicised version of that word, but or if it's meant to be like weeke, but I don't know. That could be video games ruining my knowledge of Latin. Anyway, by the by, Enedwaith used to have to kill Lindon to win, and Lindon used to have to kill Enedwaith. But that is no longer the case. I didn't cover the faction, the victory conditions, did I? I totally forgot. So I'm pretty sure that the victory conditions for Lindon are Mordor and Umbar only. I don't think you have to kill Enedwaith, but if you do, that really is not going to be difficult because Enedwaith are not very good. Although, as you can see, their Enedwaith Outriders look really good. That's Hummingbird's work as well, and he's done very well on them. I like them a lot. Our cavalry met their cavalry, and it's slaughtering them, as you can see. Their first unit has hit our line, and they've hit our shield wall and done nothing. And they are routing already. We obviously the elves are an archer. You're a solid archer faction, but that is shown in the quality of your archers, not the number of archers you can train. So as you can see, as you saw from the stats, your 3 archer units have some of the best stats archer-wise in the game, but you don't particularly get a lot of archers. I'm afraid even I cannot tell you why. I know many of you do find it almost game-breaking that archers don't pull back the arrow. As you can see here, they don't pull back on their arrow. But if we head down to our Eldarinway, you can watch them and they will pull back on the arrow. And I know that for many that's game-breaking, but unfortunately my lack of knowledge of animations means I cannot tell you why that is. I could not tell you why certain units don't have that skeleton rigged. And all I know is that there's a valid reason, and it's difficult, or it would take ages or something like that. But every person that's created units for Dax so far has never been able to rig the bows. So I can't see us ever having those bows rigged, unless Hummingbird does know how, and it is just that it takes ages. But if we run out of things to do, then I'll press him on to try and do it. But Hummingbird is definitely working on DAC more than me at the moment, so do rep him if you find his posts anywhere on Total War Center. Obviously rep is nothing really, but it is just nice to get a bit of recognition. Now, unfortunately, Enedwaith have completely ignored us. They're throwing their javelins from the Guardians of Enedwaith, the best javelin unit in the game. Demons. Enedwaith's only real threat against the forces of Lindon are those Guardians, so if you ever come up against them, be really cautious. Oh, our cavalry is routed. Oh, the nobles are getting ready. Someone's trying to charge. Speed it up and actually get some warfare. Look how many of them died before they even made it to our line. Here we are. We should be able to now show you what the effect that pikemen can have on a battle line. And it's showing you perfectly. You see how quickly they push the line away. And obviously they're wavering because they're weak, so they're getting killed because the sheer quality of Elder Inway. But even though not many Elder Inway have died, see how far back the line has been pushed. And that is what you can do with pikemen. You can break an enemy line by focusing them in a single location. And off many's the time I've fallen foul of that. There's Enedwaith's greatest unit, or potentially greatest unit, under the Guardians, the Moot Keepers. I really like their shields. I think they're really cool shields. But they're no match for Elder Inway Spearmen. We'll go up and take a look at the end and see us decimate these Moot Wardens, and then we'll call it a day. So, that is the Lindon video. I do hope it's been very informative and useful, and I do hope that you enjoy it. I do hope also that you enjoy playing as Lindon. Lindon is a very simple and easy campaign, but they've got potentially the best looking units. So those Grey Elder Inway are up in they're some of my favourite looking units in terms of look. So do enjoy playing as Lindon, and I hope the video has been informative and helpful. Do keep playing 0.5, report any bugs that you might have to us, let us know anywhere we can edit and fix things.
Slain upon the battlefield.
Our general's died. And we will try and get on it. But do stay tuned for the continuing Let's Plays of Northern Dunedain, Umbar and Dorwinion. And then this now marks, I think, only 7 of these left. So I will try and do 2 a week instead of 1 a week to bridge the gap so that we can get to an Anduin Let's Play. Oh, look, they don't have sprites. Anyway, sorry, by the by. So we can get through to the Anduin Let's Play. But for now, thank you very much for watching, if indeed you have. Feel free to subscribe should you wish to see more videos like this, or have just a look through the channel. The choice is yours. But I'm Arachír Galudirithon, the head of Divide and Conquer, and yes, that means I currently am the leader of the mod, as many people seem to not understand what head means. But anyway, thank you for watching, and until we speak again, Melodine, Navaya Naden Pedimad, and fare thee well.